You've decided to run for office. That's a big decision. Why did you decide to run for this office, and why did you decide to run now?
Well, I decided to run because I've been watching what's going on in Lansing, and I'm unhappy in the extreme with the policy that's coming out of Lansing. I have three girls in elementary school, and you look at the education cuts that have taken place. I mean, that's money that's coming out of my kids' school budget. So, that's one policy that needs to change. There's a host of them. I really don't like the direction that the Republican majority in Lansing has taken things in this state. And I could go on about a number of things, but and I'm running for state senate because it's somewhere where you can get something done and where change needs to happen. I mean, it's a Republican supermajority right now, as you know, and we need some change down there, and there didn't seem to be anybody else stepping forward, and I felt compelled to run.
You bring up education, which is going to be a pivotal part of this year's election narrative. Democrats are going to say that education funding has been cut. And if you look at the dollars and cents, there's certainly stimulus money that was there that is not there. If you look at the school aid fund money that's going in, some of it is being directed away from per pupil funding. Republicans will say, wait a minute, that money's still going into education. It's just not going into the same place. That argument is going to be going on all through this race. So if you are successful in August and we're successful in November, what would you want to do to change the way education is funded?
Well, I take a different approach than the person who holds my position right now, Senator Hildenbrand. He's voted against over over $2 billion in cuts to public education. And he's voted consistently in favor of charter schools, cyber schools, that sort of thing. To me, that looks like an effort to privatize public education. I'm a product of public education. My parents both worked in public education. That's where most Michiganders are educated, is in the public schools. So I want to focus on putting money back into public education and get away from what the Republican majority seems to be doing, which is pushing for more charter schools and more private forms of education. There's all kinds of arguments you can make about what's happened over the last 4 years, but the simple matter to me is there was this amount, there's now this amount. There was some taken out, some put back in, there was money moved around. That's, the total money is less than what it was and in public education, and that needs to change.
In addition to education, and as I pointed out, that is going to be a very top shelf issue in not just in this race, but in races across the state. But in addition to education, what are things that when you look at the state or when you look at state government, you say, I want to change that?
Well, I think we all agree that the roads need some attention. And I mean, this is an interesting thing to me because the governor is the one that's proposing, I think, about $2 billion in road funding, and he can't even get his own party to give him that. I mean, that's a real indication of how far astray Lansing has gone from what the people need to have happen. So we need to get some major action on the roads. I think, there's plenty of blame to go around. It's a situation that's developed over a lot of years, but I think everybody now, after this severe winter we've had, can see that the roads need an awful lot of attention. And it doesn't seem that, they do these little patch things, these small appropriations to kind of patch things, and I think people know that something bigger needs to be done. So that's a big thing. Another thing is with the budget, and taxation, is that, again, my opponent seems to have plenty of votes to give tax breaks and tax loopholes to big corporations and I would suggest to his backers, to the sort of folks that are backing his political career. But he voted against the earned income tax credit. He's voted against tax credits for the disabled, for charities. So I want to look at policies that I think help the middle class. And a lot of that is in the budget. I mean, that's one of the biggest things they do in Lansing is budget and taxation issues. So I would be looking at those range of issues a lot.
You started off talking about education, and so we may end up in the same place, but let's just say it is January of next year. You've taken the oath of office. All the formalities are out of the way, and you walk in to the chamber without regard to whether you're in the majority or in the minority. What's the first thing you would do?
The first thing I would do is propose to increase funding for public education. You know, I read a study just the other day that, I forget where the school district was, but it was kind of an experiment. They tried over a number of years just increasing the budget, just increasing the general budget of the school district. Their graduation rate shot up by about 20%. I can get you the actual study if you want to see it. But, you know, there's this notion, the problem with the current approach to education is that I really think that there's an effort to cut to the point where public education can't function. Then they turn around and say, look, it doesn't work. We got to have charter schools, cyber schools, private schools. All this, the public money should go over here instead of to the existing public school system. I totally oppose that approach. I think the public schools have worked. They're a part of this country's history for a reason. Most of our presidents have gone to public schools. So I want to fix the public schools, not just for my kids, but for all the kids in Michigan.